A single missile fired from Kaliningrad shattered the silence of the Baltic skies, and within hours, the world stood on the brink of nuclear war. It began with a single shot, but what followed would shake every capital across the globe. An American F-35 stealth fighter gliding through international airspace suddenly found itself in the crosshairs of Russia's most lethal air defenses. In that moment, the question wasn't just about one jet, one pilot, or even one battle. It was about the future of global stability. In this video, we'll break down 3 critical angles: the shocking strike that brought down America's most advanced fighter, NATO's retaliation that ripped open Russia's impenetrable defenses, and the chilling consequences that left the world holding its breath. Was this simply a mistake of misidentification, or had Russia fired the opening shot of World War III? The trigger. F-35 shot down. The Baltic skies that morning seemed deceptively calm. At 32,000 feet, an American F-35A Lightning II sliced through the thin air, its radar cross-section so small it was almost invisible. Launched hours earlier from RAF Lakenheath in the United Kingdom, the mission was routine: reconnaissance, surveillance, reassurance patrols for NATO. To the pilot, a decorated 34-year-old with thousands of flight hours, this was just another day above one of the most heavily militarized corridors on Earth. But inside Kaliningrad, Russia's fortified exclave wedged between Poland and Lithuania, an entirely different story was unfolding. Deep underground, the massive arrays of the S-400 Triumph radar system pulsed to life. Russian operators huddled around glowing screens, whispering orders as a single faint trace appeared. To them, it was not an American stealth fighter, but what they believed to be a Ukrainian jet violating restricted airspace. The decision came fast. The order? Fire. From a steel launch tube, a 48N6 missile, nearly 4,000 pounds of fuel and explosives erupted skyward. In seconds, it was traveling at Mach 14, over 10,000 miles per hour. The white contrail carved across the Baltic like a scar. Inside the F-35 cockpit, warning alarms screamed. The pilot yanked the stick, pulling into violent evasive maneuvers. Decoy flares lit the sky. G-forces pressed him into the seat, his vision narrowing. For 27 terrifying seconds, death chased him across the horizon. The missile never struck directly. Instead, it self-detonated just 600 yards away. The shockwave slammed into the jet like a sledgehammer. The right wing shredded, flight surfaces crippled, control panels lighting up in urgent red. Sweat poured into the pilot's eyes as he steadied trembling hands. Into his secure comms he whispered, steady but grim, "Mayday, Mayday, Falcon One hit, over Baltic waters, attempting controlled ditch." Moments later, the jet dipped nose first toward the steel gray sea. And then came the question that would haunt leaders in Washington and Brussels. Was this a tragic misidentification or a deliberate act of war? If Russia truly believed it was targeting a Ukrainian aircraft, why fire such a powerful missile so deep in contested skies? If it knew it was American, the implications were catastrophic. At 4:15 a.m. Washington time, the encrypted Mayday message flashed across Pentagon screens. Within minutes, the White House Situation Room was filled. The President, Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and National Security Advisor. Grim faces, terse voices. Intelligence confirmed the missile had come from Kaliningrad, Russia's most fortified enclave. The odds of it being a mistake were slim. The message was clear. Russia had effectively fired on the United States. The president's words were brief but decisive. Prepare the fleet. In that instant, the gears of war began to turn. Across the Atlantic, America's most advanced carrier strike group readied for retaliation. Within hours, NATO would face its most dangerous test since the Cold War. NATO strikes back. The world expected a swift American retaliation. Instead, what unfolded was something far more formidable. NATO as a united war machine. Within hours of the Russian strike, an emergency session was convened in Brussels. Ministers pounded the table, voices sharp as Britain, Poland, and Germany declared themselves on highest alert. This was no longer Washington's fight alone. It was Article 5 in motion. Far out at sea, steel Leviathan stirred. The USS Gerald R. Ford, America's most advanced carrier, launched combat air patrols. But this time, she did not sail alone. German Airbus tankers lined up to keep fighters airborne, while NATO AWACS circled at 10,000 meters, their sweeping radar eyes painting every movement over the Baltic. It was the largest Allied air armada since the Gulf War. At precisely 3:15 local time, the first strike wave began. 68 drones streaked across the night sky, their engines whining like angry hornets. Behind them came the muscle, squadrons of F-22 Raptors and the brand-new F-15EX Eagles. From a distance, the swarm looked almost unreal, a living storm of steel and fire. Electronic jammers blinded Russian radar, while precision-guided bombs lit up the coastline. Kaliningrad's vaunted air defenses, once considered an impregnable fortress, now burned like a bonfire under relentless assault. But Russia did not sit idle. Within minutes, 22 surface-to-air missiles roared into the sky, their trails carving across the black canvas above the Baltic. One F-15EX was caught mid-maneuver. The detonation split the aircraft apart in an orange blossom of flame. Both pilots perished instantly, their final radio call cut short. Moments later, an F-22 was crippled, limping back toward Allied airspace trailing smoke and sparks. NATO had struck hard, but it was bleeding too. And then came the moment of brutal realism. War is never tidy. As the aerial battle raged, NATO command diverted helicopters and drones into a parallel mission, search and rescue. Somewhere in the chaos, an F-35 had been downed. Its pilot had ejected, parachuting into icy waters. NATO teams scrambled to extract him, deploying SAR helicopters under heavy electronic cover. But Russian ships, fast and determined, closed in on the same patch of sea. Would the pilot be saved, or would Moscow capture him alive? The tension rippled through every command center, from London to Warsaw. As the smoke cleared, the scoreboard read grimly. Kaliningrad's defenses were shredded, but NATO aircraft had been lost. Russian resolve was unbroken, and their fleet pressed closer. The section closed on a knife's edge. Both sides had drawn blood. The stakes were rising with every passing minute. And though the night sky was filled with wreckage and fire, one truth became clear. The decisive blow had yet to come.
Firestorm over Kaliningrad. The order came at dawn. From the frigid Baltic waters, the USS Thomas Hudner, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, swung her vertical launch cells toward the horizon. In a thunderous ripple, 20 Tomahawk cruise missiles erupted into the sky. Each missile, 1.5 tons of steel and electronics, flying low at 880 kilometers per hour, snaked across the waves, hugging the terrain like predators hunting prey. Minutes later, Kaliningrad shuddered under the storm. The first warhead slammed into hardened bunkers, punching through reinforced concrete before detonating with surgical fury. Radar domes that once tracked every aircraft over the Baltic Sea disintegrated into molten debris. One by one, command hubs vanished in blossoms of fire, their power grids flickering out across the enclave. Within half an hour, the entire Russian command and control network in Kaliningrad was fractured, its voice silenced under a rain of steel. But destruction was not confined to military targets alone. The firestorm rippled across civilian life. Villages near the blast zones were swallowed in smoke. Families poured onto highways, cars jammed with children and pets desperate to flee eastward. Markets in Warsaw, Berlin, and London nosedived in real time as investors panicked. Supermarkets in Riga and Vilnius saw empty shelves by noon. Europe could feel the tremor of war creeping into its daily existence. Inside the Kremlin, the reaction was immediate and furious. With Kaliningrad's defenses crumbling, Moscow signaled escalation. Nuclear-capable Tu-22M3 bombers were scrambled from bases deep inside Russia, their silhouettes rising like grim messengers of Armageddon. Each aircraft carried payloads designed to erase cities, not battlefields. It was a warning written in megatons. Radars lit up the moment the bombers left their hangars. Air bases in Poland, Germany, and Norway surged to life. F-35s and Eurofighters streaked into the sky, interceptors clawing for altitude at nearly Mach 2. Over the Baltic, tense electronic handshakes began. Radars locked, missiles armed, fingers trembling near the trigger. For a heartbeat, the world stood on the razor's edge of nuclear exchange. Then, almost as suddenly, both sides eased off. The bombers turned back, their flight paths curving east. NATO jets broke formation and returned to their patrol lines. Neither alliance nor Kremlin was ready to cross the nuclear threshold. Not yet. But the signal was clear. The escalation ladder had more rungs to climb, and the fall from it would be catastrophic. As the smoke cleared, analysts pieced together the damage. Out of Kaliningrad's once vaunted defense grid, nearly three-quarters was gone. Radar stations reduced to rubble, missile batteries disabled, command bunkers silenced. The numbers told the story best. In just 47 minutes, 72% of Kaliningrad's defenses were erased, but so was the illusion of stability in Europe. The battlefield had been transformed, but the deeper transformation was psychological. Every European capital now understood that war was no longer a distant nightmare. It was here, alive, burning at their doorstep. The battle ended, but the cost was staggering. America mourned 2 fallen pilots. Russia counted billions in losses and hundreds of soldiers gone. Yet the true casualty was global security itself. If one misidentified jet could unleash this firestorm, how close are we to total war? The message is clear. Any nation that dares to strike America must know the response will be absolute. But the price of miscalculation could be the end of us all. Like, share, and subscribe, because this is the future of war and the world needs to understand it.